Welcome back everyone. Today's video will be a guide on Mythic Nythendra for Holy Paladins. Now just because this is a Holy Paladin centric guide doesn't mean you can't utilize it to learn the fight, or if you're a healer, adjust what I say to suit your class. Before we get into the actual boss fight, I want to show you all my talents and why I chose them. I chose Bestow Faith for the additional heal to cast on players that have Rot or on other players as part of my healing rotation, but typically I reserve this heal for tanks. Rule of Law for the heavy AoE damage phases where my mastery is increased by 50%, which allows my Light of Dawn and Holy Prism to do more effective healing. Aura of Mercy to assist in the damage over time effects, especially with heavy raid-wide damage when paired with Aura Mastery. Holy Prism for an additional heal, but Divine Purpose works just as well when it procs. For the next tier, you can use Judgment of Light or Sanctified Wrath. If you have the legendary ring that increases your healing after casting Judgment, I would definitely go with Judgment of Light. The only reason I chose Judgment of Light was to test to see how effective it would be on fights where AoE damage like that is a consistent thing. And for the last tier, you're going to choose Beacon of the Lightbringer and swap it on whichever tank has aggro throughout the fight. The fight itself has two phases that repeat one another until Nythendra dies. In Phase 1, there's a debuff called Rot, which targets players and inflicts 380,250 plague damage to all allies within 8 yards every 3 seconds for 9 seconds, and when the debuff wears off, drops Infested Ground wherever the player is that has the buff. Infested Ground creates an area of corruption that inflicts 528,945 damage every 1.5 seconds to anyone within the area. Make sure you keep an eye on players with the Rot debuff and heal them as necessary, since if they have no defensive cooldowns, it can easily kill them. This also means make sure you heal yourself when you get the debuff if you ever get it. Any player that's targeted with Rot, stands in the Infested Ground, or is hit within 8 yards of the player that has Rot gains a stack of Infested for each tick of damage received. Infested inflicts 10,500 plague damage every 2 seconds and increases with each stack you receive. Players that get 10 or more stacks of Infested will get mind controlled and must be DPS down to around 40% HP after Nythendra casts Infested Mind. This will reset their Infested stacks, but while mind controlled will periodically cast the ability Spread Infestation that deals 328,875 damage to all players. When a player gets mind controlled, it's best for you to firstly focus on dispelling them, as any damage over time effects that players use to break them out of the mind control will still be on them after coming out of the mind control, followed by healing them back to 100 HP and then continuing your normal healing. If you happen to get mind controlled yourself, spam Dispel on yourself and use a defensive like Divine Protection upon coming out of the mind control. If you're really worried about dying, of course pop your Divine Shield, but you're better off saving it for Phase 2 of the fight if you can. Throughout the fight, the boss will turn and target a random player's location and cast Infested Breath, where it breeds clouds of poisonous insects, inflicting 617,102 plague damage every second for 5 seconds to anyone that stands in it, adding stacks of Infested and also creating pockets of Infested Ground in that direction. During this phase, the tank will gain a debuff called Volatile Rot, in which inflicts 2,640,492 plague damage to all players after 8 seconds. The tank that has this needs to move as far away from the raid as possible, as the farther away he is, the less damage people will take when the Volatile Rot explodes. If you took the Judgment of Light talent, you'll want to hit the boss with Judgment as soon as the raid takes the AoE damage and continue refreshing it as the stacks of Judgment of Light start to fall off and Judgment comes off cooldown. After casting Judgment, if you took the Judgment of Light talent, you're going to want to hit your Rule of Law and then Light of Dawn and Holy Prism as well to heal as many people within the area of effects of those heals as fast as possible. You'll also want to discuss with your other healers healing cooldowns for each of the volatile rots that you encounter throughout the boss fight. For example, in my guild we have our Holy Priest do his cooldown first, the rest of Druid do his cooldown second, I do my Aura Mastery third, and the rest of Shaman do his Healing Tide Totem last. Another thing to note about Volatile Rot is that it also forms patches of infested ground on the floor that you'll need to dodge. Once the boss cycles through those abilities comes Phase 2. In Phase 2, the boss loses all of its energy and enters a sleep phase. During this 20-second phase, some of the small insects you see on the ground will grow and cast Burst of Corruption, dealing 1,375,256 plague damage to all players within 8 yards of it. It is imperative that you move away from these as soon as possible. You're better off taking a stack of infested and getting hit by an infested ground that is being absorbed by the boss than die from taking damage from one of the insects casting this. The toxic residue around the room increases the damage of Burst of Corruption by 25% for 5 seconds and stacks the more that hit it. If you still have your Divine Shield available at any point of this, it's best you use it if you find yourself in a situation where death is unavoidable. Once the boss consumes all the infested ground in the room, she will wake up and repeat phase 1 and phase 2 until you kill her. Congratulations on your kill. If this video helped you out, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this, hit that subscribe button and let me know some of your ideas for future videos you would like to see in the comments below. Be sure to check me out on Twitch at www.twitch.tv/Paramo and give me a follow if you want to see my Holy Paladin gameplay live, ask me questions, hang out with other viewers, and watch the guild I'm in progress through Mythic Raid content and partake in giveaways that happen every week. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you next time.